Come on, Facebook.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have vowed to take away your Second Amendment rights through gun bans, gun confiscation, and government regulations. Now, Joe Biden is no longer hiding his real intentions, and we need you to take action now.
Whether it's a 9mm pistol or whether it's a rifle, is ridiculous. I'm continuing to push to eliminate the sale of those things. But
the Biden administration is coming after your right to own any gun, and we need you to text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Joe Biden has already issued executive orders. He is now demanding Congress push through radical gun legislation. You can fight back to stop Joe Biden's gun grab, but you must text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Take action to protect your right to keep and bear arms. We urgently need millions of Americans to text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221. Text PROTECT2A to 888-762-0221.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of the Daily Bullet. My name is Paul Lathrop. I'm the Deputy Director of New Media for the Second Amendment Foundation. Joining me today, my cohort in crime, Rob Morse from Self-Defense Gun Stories, often my co-host on the Polite Society podcast. Rob, thanks for dropping by today, man.
I was in the neighborhood, Paul.
There you go. So let's get. We got a lot of stuff to. We're not going to be able to get to all of it. Let's get started with first story we got on tap. This is a bit of Schadenfreude, bud. My take on this one: if you're for gun control, maybe it's because you really can't be trusted with guns. Coming out of Louisville, Kentucky, a former newspaper intern and opinion writer for a newspaper was arrested for
attempted murder.
Yes, of a mayoral candidate.
Right.
Ran into the office of the candidate, opened fire, luckily didn't hit a darn thing, and then ran off and was arrested a few minutes and a few blocks later with a, at that time, unloaded gun with partially empty magazines on him. So, yeah, vociferous, a very vocal anti-gun advocate was this guy. So,
right, he's saying your elected representatives time and again chose to support the National Rifle Association, and they put your life at risk. This is a 21-year-old guy. Doesn't know poop. But you get to, anybody can call themselves an activist. And he goes, the bill that allowed Kentuckians to carry, that's horrible. It's going to put blood on the streets. Okay, let's look. 21 years old, nutcase, a narcissist, and he would have gotten a gun. In fact, he did get a gun, legally. He could have gotten his permit, because permits do background checks that look forward. No, my friend, backward. So he got his free attempted mass murder. That's the way the system works. And that the way it works results in the fewest lives lost. Unfortunately, not none.
Yes, very much unfortunately not none, because if there were true justice, there would have been one life lost, and that would have been the attacker.
Yep. Oh, but okay. Are we going to the next story?
Yeah, let's actually talk about this next one, because that was a bad use of a firearm. Let's talk about a bad use that led to good uses of firearms.
There we go. So this one plays out Thursday afternoon. Man in his 60s. I don't know why he's home on a Thursday afternoon. He's been drinking. His neighbors this is Washington State. A neighbor's burning trash and leaves. The neighbor comes out. The smoke from your fire is coming into my house. Yeah, that's what happens. It's outdoors. You're downwind. Sorry. Well, the guy gets all upset, goes back inside, gets a shotgun, shoots it up into the air, threatens the neighbor, goes back inside with his gun, gets another beer. This doesn't look good. The trend is headed the wrong direction. The neighbor, of course, calls 911. 2 deputies show up. drunk nut with a gun comes out and shoots one of the deputies. Second deputy dives in front of his partner, shoots at the guy with the shotgun, the crazy drunk homeowner. Two neighbors across the street see this. Two vets take their kids inside, come back with their firearms, and keep crazy drunk neighbor pinned inside the home so that he can't shoot the two deputies. A third neighbor comes in, gets a gun. He runs up near the wounded deputies, dives in the way, helps the two officers to drag the wounded deputy into a nearby garage so he's out of the line of fire. They now have the freedom to work on him and save his life.
Yes. I did not read far enough. The bad guy, the guy with the shotgun, the guy that opened fire on the deputies, I did not read far enough into this. I'm assuming most of these end up where the bad guy ends up not being taken into custody. Is that the case here?
No, he survived, and he was booked. What was he charged with? 2 counts of first-degree attempted murder.
Wow.
Yeah, so and SWAT was called then. So this turned out into a many-hour-long adventure. But you know what? Here's what that article didn't say. These are the same honest citizens, gun-owning citizens, concealed carrying citizens that Washington state lawmakers would like to disarm.
Yep. They are the exact same citizens that Washington state wants to disarm. And I would assume that of the firearms used to help defend those law enforcement officers, at least one of them was a rifle. And
they were vets, so I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah.
Yeah, and they want the Washington state
gun ban crowd.
Yeah, they want to limit those rifles down to 10 rounds. Now, admittedly, I don't know if there's going to be a grandfather clause in there. I don't know how there can be, because quite literally, how do you don't? There are no serial numbers on mags. You don't.
Not typically.
So, but at any rate, they want standard capacity mags to go away, and
well,
they
but
want
here's
only 10-round mags. And
Paul, the reason. Go no, come on.
A mag change doesn't take that long, but if I'm trying to keep this guy pinned down, I don't want to have to reload more than I have to.
The media has hidden stories like this. This is the rule, not the exception. 1.7 million defensive gun uses a year, and you don't hear about them. This one was so sensational, they had to cover it. Clearly, they save lives. And again, the reason these anti-gun politicians stand at prayer in front of the press is distorting the truth to make gun control sound like it's remotely virtuous. In fact, it costs lives.
Yeah.
Where to next?
Well, let's go to a comment next.
Oh, how cool.
John from the Facebook side says, I'll take a swing and say everyone in the neighborhood knew that he was a known nutcase. That's a pretty fair bet, wouldn't you say, Rob?
In hindsight, I bet they all had a hint. Whether they would have called him in and said, this guy needs treatment, that's another call. That's hard to do.
Yeah, it really is. For
all we know, the guy was just an alcoholic. You can't tell.
And the other thing in here that I want to bring up, and then we'll move on to our next story, is that the guy had ample time from the beginning of this. He was drinking at the beginning, and he had ample time to continue imbibing and making the problem worse.
Right. Yeah.
So, I'm the last person to say, let's ban alcohol, because it didn't work the first time, and neither has the war on drugs. But if alcohol is a issue with this guy, let's get him some help. Brooke Good comment, Brooke. Brooke Cheney says, I had 2 students in my class this weekend who de-escalated by pulling a firearm and not firing a shot. The perfect DGU. We hear about those a little bit. Quite often what gets reported and what you and I use on our respective podcasts, Robs, are the DGUs where there is a shot fired. But the perfect DGU, I think you and I would agree, are ones where everything comes to an end and a shot has never been fired.
And those are the rule rather than the exception. About 82%. What's great, and I bet Brooke does this, I wish she was here with us, I love firearms instructors that as they're teaching new students, teach them to present, touch, trigger, present, fire, present, oh, don't fire, he ran away. That's built right in, and there's a decision, is he still there? Oh, no, okay. That, yes, we want to teach people to be able to fire instinctively. We also want them to be able to make a judgment. And we can train that in. I love it.
The number one thing you need to have working at absolute top notch if you're going to be carrying a firearm is right here, what's in between your ears. You need to be able to think extremely fast, which is why, and after I had my stroke, I was very concerned about my ability to carry, and for a while, honestly, I didn't. And I went through, before I went back to carrying daily, I went through another Masada U Group Mag 40 class before I went back to carrying daily. And I was observed by Masad himself before I felt safe enough that I could do that on a regular basis. So, yeah, I agree with you, Rob. Knowing when not to shoot is absolutely as important as knowing when to shoot.
Ready to go on to the $1.5 billion adventure?
I love and I love this story. You know, we've had record gun sales after record gun sales after record gun sales. And you know what that means? Every firearm and every bit of ammunition has a federal excise tax attached to it.
Yes, it does.
And that means wildlife is getting record numbers of dollars for wildlife programs and conservation programs. I think that's a good thing.
Well, and the numbers really add up. Okay, because that tax is on guns, ammo, archery, fishing equipment, and often on boating fuel as well, marine fuel. Add that all up, $1.5 billion. Whoa. So, you know what? We need to call up our representatives and say, hey, I know you've got that, and before you use that to pay some horrible special interest group, how about we put it to use back so that we can, have access to our wildlands?
Yes.
Go forth.
Yes, and let's not use it to fund the EPA. Let's not use it to find the sleeping habits of the single-horned horny owl. I mean, let's use it for actual wildlife conservation. And another good news story here. This one out of Tennessee. I like this one. Tennessee right now has a 1-year moratorium, a tax holiday on real gun safety equipment, safes, locks, things like that. If you buy a gun lock or a safe in Tennessee right now, there's no state tax on it. And the legislature is looking, well, that's working pretty well. And we're really about firearm safety here. Maybe we should extend that for another year. Folks, that's what real gun safety legislation looks like. Good on Tennessee.
Paul, I want to add to that. It's just for the safe. How about for the detection monitoring devices that you put in the safe, right? So you can tell if the safe rocks. They're essentially microphones with a sensor. I have one in a building. We've got an alarm system. It's essentially a fancy microphone. On top of that, how about the devices that prevent an armed conflict? motion detector lights, camera systems. It's a good start. Now let's keep going.
Big
A harder
dogs with a
sell,
big bark.
Well, so you're telling me you want me to underwrite your dog food?
Yes, very much so.
Count
Do
me
you
in.
know
I'll vote
how
for it.
much a 120-pound pit bull mix eats?
That's why he's your dog, not mine, right?
There you go. But I'm with you. If they were to expand it out to real security equipment beyond just securing the firearms, I would love that as well.
As your instructors and mine keep telling me, oh, you win every fight you avoid.
Mm-hmm.
What could you have done so that it never came to you wanting to put your hand on your gun? Okay, that's a different show. Sorry.
Now let's this one goes back to the Schadenfreude thing, and maybe we should have brought this up with the first story with the
Oh, yeah,
this one there was a
the attack on the mayor in Tennessee. Yeah.
let me pull this one up. There were two. This is Nashua, New Hampshire.
Yeah.
A judge is
To
found,
Manchester. Yeah.
judges found in favor of Chester Arms in Derry and the State Department of Safety in a lawsuit filed against them by two Manchester police officers who were shot and wounded in May 2016. I'm going to stop reading there and start summarizing there. A very mentally disturbed individual was able to get a firearm legally, and although this guy had had many run-ins with the police, and his family knew that he had many mental issues, the guy was able to get a firearm legally. He got delayed in his purchase through the gun shop, and after the 3 days, which they are absolutely federal, that's the federal guideline, after 3 days, if we don't get back to you, you are allowed to proceed with the purchase. After 3 business days, that's exactly what they did. They followed federal guidelines to the T. These two officers that were injured when this guy went off the deep end and shot them sued the store, and it came.
They also sued their own police department.
Oh, they should have if they didn't, because this guy was known to that department.
Right. And no office, no, look, that's typically not the call of the street patrolman. He takes it to his sergeant and says, we're seeing this guy, let's drop the dime on him, let's get him on the list, let's get him in for a psych evaluation, because things are just going to get worse. The sergeant, and I don't know whether it's county mental health officials or actually prosecuting attorneys are then involved. Those are the guys who dropped the ball. Unfortunately, the officers on the street probably paid the price. So this is a matter of poor police policy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, okay. And the judge said, you're barking up the wrong tree trying to sue the gun store.
Yep.
And the reasons for that are extremely clear. You don't want gun shops practicing their version of mental health. You don't want them profiling somebody. Now, do in fact they go, man, this guy looks more like an addict than a guy doing target shooting. So they will often call the police and say, give me a warm feeling because this doesn't look good. And that's how a lot of sales are stopped. But unless the police are willing to stand up and say, stop this guy, the gun shop can't know his record. It's not their job.
Well, and Rob, both you and I know people who are in the firearms industry, specifically firearms retailers, who have refused to sell guns because they believe this is going to be a straw purchase.
Right. Yep.
I have the utmost respect for anybody that goes and gets an FFL, because they are one small misstep, and not only does your license go away, you probably go to jail. The ATF, especially right now, is really looking to draw and quarter anybody that has an FFL. And so one small misstep and your business is gone, and you may be wearing those fancy shiny bracelets, the heavy metal ones.
Paul, you've seen new firearms owners. You take them to the range, they go boom, boom. They go, wow, that's cool. And then they look at the gun and go, but this is just a 22. It's not really lethal. And you go, no, you don't understand. Everything is lethal.
Yes.
Taking a life is that easy. And they put a few ounces of steel down, and they suddenly feel the moral weight of the gun. I've yet to meet someone who worked in a gun shop who didn't carry that weight with every firearm sale.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. A testament to our neighbors.
You know, and one more bit of good news, but this is a little bit older. I do remember talking about it on this show before. This is a week and a half to 2 weeks old. There was studies that came out of the NSSF that in 2021, despite the record number of gun sales, I want to say, and again, my brain isn't as good as it used to be at pulling figures out of the air, that not only were there record numbers of minorities, women, and people, non-whites buying guns, but of the people buying guns, I want to say it was almost half of them were looking for training as they bought the gun, and north of 40% actually got the training with the gun. So New gun owners are getting training with that firearm, and I think that's very heartening, Rob.
Well, let's underline that again. We've had a number of states who've become constitutional carry states. We've had a number of states who are thinking about it or say they are. What is often lost in that debate is what we're talking about is taxing gun owners so that they can get a carry permit. Here's what would happen. If you said, and some states are literally like this, oh, go to the DMV, they'd run a background check, 10 minutes later, there's your license. Okay, those states have a large number of people who are carrying. What we forget is that every time we disarm somebody, that means that's a disarmed victim rather than an armed offender. So people who are armed reduce crime. The other side of that is when we take a lot of money from them, as anti-gun states often do, for training, for licensing fees, that leaves them less money to spend on training.
Yeah.
They can only spend so much on self-defense.
That's right. And Brooke, I'm going to get to your question in just a second. But Rob, I want to go off on that just a little bit in that, and we've seen this time and time and time again. When fees go down, training goes up. When required training goes away, people seeking and getting training goes up.
Well, remember, let's back up half a step to that article we just had about a tax holiday for gun safes. Gun safes are good. Okay, firearm training is good too. Can I get a tax break? Can I get a rebate? Hey, could we have rebates so that poor gun owners could actually get a tax credit, maybe even a complete rebate for their firearms training?
Oh, I remember one of the things when I very first started the Politics and Guns podcast, I got people up in arms when I said I wanted a refundable tax credit for low-income families that armed themselves. And I had people just coming out of the woodwork saying, if you can't afford a gun, you shouldn't have a gun. And I told them, if you can't afford a gun, you're the one that needs a gun the most. So
probably.
But we've got...
Well, and if you want to say... Oh, who's got a comment? Let
Brooke has a comment. And believe it, I swear, our viewers, our listeners have ESP because Brooke knows the next story that's coming up. She wants to know, are you guys going to talk about this travesty today, about the Sandy Hook victims settling with Remington? Yep, that is on the agenda, and we're going to be talking about that next. Let's go ahead and talk about that one, Rob. I honestly think with that one, I think it was Remington went through bankruptcy and was bought, and I think it was the company that bought Remington kind of figured this into the purchase price. And I wish John Richardson was here to talk with us about that. John is the absolute genius when it comes to money stuff.
Well, the insurance companies were on the hook for liability insurance, and they said if they get a crooked judge who distorts the evidence they're able to submit, they go, man, this could get crazy, so we'll settle rather than go to trial, which is insane, but that's what they did. And they settled for a chunk.
Yeah. Yeah, let me see if I can get that pulled up here.
$73 million. How many was that split amongst?
A lot of attorneys.
Yeah, right. They made a lot of attorneys get a third house out of that one. I don't see how many it says were included in the suit. It may be in there. But what's fascinating about this is, didn't we have a President Mumbles who said gun companies are above the law, right? And I need to rein them in?
Yeah.
Okay, Joe, so you'll go after whoever's suing this guy because clearly they're breaking the law because according to you? No. Sorry, Mumbles.
Yeah. Let me get this one up. Brooke said, in Connecticut, $150 for the permit class, $35 for the federal background check, $75 for the state background check, $85 for the actual permit, and more that she can't think of. Brooke, I'm going to make you insanely jealous. There is a bill that is making its way through the South Dakota State Senate right now. It is looking very much like it's going to pass. The total amount that South Dakota residents will have to pay for their enhanced concealed carry permit, if this goes through and is signed into law, Governor Noem's pressing for it, promised she'll sign it. If this goes through, and it looks like it will, the total amount we're going to have to pay for enhanced concealed carry permits, $0. I love it.
Brooke, because each one of those fees is a tax. Each tax means fewer people become armed. Those increased number of disarmed victims have a worse outcome, and we can measure that. If you'll put the list together, you line up the fees for Connecticut, I will describe the amount that each fee, the number of increased victims that each fee produced. Fair trade?
Michael over on the Facebook side. We're getting a lot of great comments coming in from the Facebook side. Michael says some states want everything related to a gun to go through an FFL, like parts, magazines, barrels, grips. This means we'll be paying an FFL fee for $1 spring. You got it. Plus, they want to now, for the background check, they want to start charging a fee for the background check. So,
now you're saying the feds want to charge?
Yeah, there's a law that's being proposed. It's in the U.S. House right now by I cannot remember her name off the top of my head, but a New York House member.
Right, there you go.
Going forward, wants to charge a $1 fee for every time you get a NICS check. And of course,
so isn't that a little bit like a poll tax?
So it's $1 now. Next year they're going to double it to $2, and by the time we get to 2030, it'll be $652 every NICS check. And Michael, going back to the Remington story, Michael says Remington Arms will pay 9 families who lost loved ones in the Sandy Hook Elementary School shooting $73 million to settle a wrongful death lawsuit. Okay. So there's our numbers.
Thank you, Michael.
All right. Well, we are right down at the time we've got. So we had a few more stories, but I don't think we're going to be able to get them in, man. And we
got
knew,
tomorrow.
Yeah. We knew that it was going to be tight trying to get in what we got. So on our way out, if you would please, Rob, remind everybody about the Slow Facts blog and self-defense gun stories.
Each week, I co-host the Polite Society podcast with Paul, and I get to host Self-Defense Gun Stories. My blog is at slowfacts.wordpress.com. 1,900 articles for me to select from. From there, the writing's picked up and carried at AmmoLand, where I write the weekly Armed Citizen column.
All right. On my end, I want to remind everybody, please come join us. Today is Tuesday, so tomorrow and Thursday for more Daily Bullet. Friday, I'm going to be in the air when the Daily Bullet is supposed to be happening, so there will not be one. Saturday, come join me on the OpsLens app as we broadcast live the big rally from the Capitol steps in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm really looking forward to seeing a bunch of my friends down there and really looking forward to bringing that rally to you on the OpsLens app. That's going to do it for us today, everybody. Thank you for watching, and we will see you next time.